Where are the breaks? Who says this doesn't seem right?
What's the most important thing you think we haven't talked about today that we should have talked about?
So we didn't talk about how to build an indestructible workplace.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I read a stat that you tweeted a couple of years ago that said nurses had managed to reduce the rate of mistakes when they're giving subscriptions by like 80% just by wearing like a vest that said "Do not disturb me."
Right. Exactly.
Which is staggering.
So that's where I got the idea of that screen sign that comes in every copy of the book. So these nurses in the UK actually, it was this huge problem of prescription mistakes, that patients were being prescribed the wrong medication or the wrong dosage of medication. It turns out that in almost all cases, it was caused by distraction. They were, on their dosing rounds, and somebody would tap them on the shoulder and disrupt them, and then they would make mistakes. And the solution was that they had these nurses wear these bright red vests that says "Drug round in progress, do not disturb." And they reduced the percentage of prescription mistakes by 88%. They almost eliminated the problem. And so I tell the story. I know that, not everybody who reads the book is in the medical profession, but I tell the story to illustrate, one, how we too don't realize the problem is happening until it's too late, right? We think we're doing our job, we're doing great, everything's fine. And just like these nurses, not until they came back to work the next day did they realize, hey, did you realize you gave Mr. Johnson the wrong medication? You almost killed the man, right? In that case, they got that immediate feedback, and it's awful, life-threatening. For us, we don't realize how much better we could be at our jobs or at life when we work without distraction. There's a whole section in the book on building an indestructible workplace. We found that there's 3 characteristics of an indestructible workplace. The first is that there is a sense of psychological safety. This comes from the work of Amy Edmondson at Harvard. And she's identified that psychological safety is this ability to talk about your problems without fear of retribution. So if you can't raise your hand and talk about the problem of distraction, hey boss, I'm really having trouble finishing my work because I constantly feel I'm interrupted. If you can't talk about that problem, that is the problem. It's not the technology, it's that you can't talk about the problem. So number 1 trait, psychological safety, the ability to talk about the problem. Second is a forum to talk about the problem. So a little sidebar, Slack was one of these products that a lot of people complained about when I was researching the book. And I said, what do you find most distracting? And Slack kept coming up, or other group messaging services, but Slack is the biggest, or was the biggest at the time. And so I went to visit Slack. I went to Slack headquarters in San Francisco. And I expected, if Slack is this super distracting technology, well, nobody uses Slack more than Slack. I expected to see an office full of people who were constantly distracted. But that's not what I found at all. That at Slack, the parking lot clears out at 6 p.m. And if you use Slack on nights and weekends, you are reprimanded. You are told that is not what we do at our company, right? And what I found was that they exemplified these traits. There's another company I profile in the book, but Slack is one of them. So they have psychological safety. They give people a forum. That's the second trait. They give people a forum to talk about the problem. And so they created Slack channels where it was called beef tweets. They had a Slack channel where people could post complaints or suggestions about the company. And so what was important about this as a practice, it doesn't have to be on Slack. Some companies, I profile Boston Consulting Group as well. They had a massive turnaround as well when it comes to their company culture. They went from one of the hardest places to work. It was my first job out of college. It was really rough from a work-life balance perspective to now it's one of the best places to work, according to, they got an award for one of the best places to work in America. And they did that by creating a forum, by creating a place to talk about the problem. So Slack has a Slack channel where people can talk about things that they want to improve at the company. And the important thing here is not that everything has to be acted upon, right? Management can decide what's important and what's not important, but employees need to be seen. So what did Slack management do? In order to make sure that people felt heard, they would use emoji. They would send, like if somebody had a complaint, they would post the eye emoji to show them, okay, we saw that, or the check emoji to show them it's been taken care of, right? So it's a forum for people to talk about the problem and feel like they're heard. The third trait, and the most important, is that management needs to exemplify what it means to be indistractable. So when you walk into Slack headquarters, there's a huge pink neon sign. I also have a picture of it in the book. A huge pink neon sign in the company canteen that says, work hard and go home. It's part of the company ethos that people do their best work when they're fully focused. And then after work, they need time to be with their families, to do other things. So, and that was part of the company culture. So psychological safety, a forum to talk about these problems, and making sure that management exemplifies what it means to be indistractable.
So much of that I'm going to implement. Neil, we have a closing tradition on this podcast where the last guest leaves a question for the next guest, not knowing who they're leaving a question before. It's a new tradition since you last came on. And the question that's been left for you is, what is one idea that is important that most people would disagree with you on, that you feel needs to be said?
Oh, the Peter Thiel question. Okay, you asked me what I changed my mind on.
Mm-hmm.
And I mentioned it a few times in passing, but I've really changed my mind on the importance of religion. In that I'm secular. I don't believe in anything supernatural. But I think we as skeptics, I would say, to describe us, whether you call yourself agnostic or atheist or whatever, we give up a lot. We give up a lot. And I've changed my mind on the fact that organized religion has a lot to offer us. And this is something I'm really struggling with because I have such a problem with accepting the supernatural elements of religion. But the benefits are amazing, right? Taking care of people who you may not know directly, but are part of your community. Having a place to go to that you know you will be taken care of as well. Having rituals that mark the year. Higher purpose, forced disconnection and reflection, meditation, prayer. There's so many things that I think we miss out on that I have a newfound respect for the benefits. I think a lot of people get stuck with, yeah, but I can't believe the hocus pocus, right? Deridingly said. But we miss a lot. And I think we should acknowledge that.
Thank you for writing such a great book. Thank you for coming back onto the podcast. You're an incredible person, and I can't wait to buy whatever you write next.
I appreciate that so much. It's a huge honor. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Neil. Ladies and gentlemen, our newest brand partnership will come as no surprise to regular listeners on this podcast. The first episode of 2023, I was joined by the incredible Professor Tim Spector to hear more about his work at a company called Zoe, using data to understand our bodies better so that we can live more fulfilled, higher potential lives. Zoe was born from the truth that our overall health is impacted by our gut health. By helping you to understand how your body is working, Zoe can help you to reduce your risk of long-term disease and increase your energy levels. For me, this is the future. And that is why I became an investor in the company. And that is why they are now a sponsor of this podcast. You can read up about everything they're doing, and you can pre-order your Zoe program at joinzoe.com. And they've been kind enough to offer an exclusive 10% off code CEO10. So you can put that code in at checkout, CEO10. You got to the end of this podcast. Whenever someone gets to the end of this podcast, I feel like I owe them a greater debt of gratitude because that means you listened to the whole thing. And hopefully that suggests that you enjoyed it. If you are at the end and you enjoyed this podcast, could you do me a little bit of a favor and hit that subscribe button? That's one of the clearest indicators we have that this episode was a good episode. And we look at that on all of the episodes to see which episodes generated the most subscribers. Thank you so much, and I'll see you again next time.